times, but there is you just know when you're in the vessel and when you're not. More so than not. There are a few out there that you're just like, wow, I don't know, but it is. It definitely with a graft. Going in with a graft, you feel that resistance and that pop, and once you feel that pop, you know you're in. With fistula, not always will you get that pop, but you do have that feeling. And I can't describe it. But I would suggest pulling back. Sometimes use the team approach. Have someone with you while you're inserting the needle. Have them kind of pull back on the syringe a little bit each time you advance. You don't want to pull back a lot, but just a tiny little tug to see if you get any flashback. I don't know if you guys use wet needles when you put them in. Do you feel sometimes? Okay. Put the saline in the line. If you don't have a wet needle, you can see that flashback. When it's a wet needle, you don't until you pull the syringe back. So I guess our protocol is to use the wet needle, but if you've got a difficult fistula, sometimes we'll go with a dry needle so that we can just see that flashback.
So what are the advantages of a wet needle?
It's just our protocol. So you're not infusing air.
Okay.
But like I said, if you do have that really difficult fistula that you can't really feel and you know it's deep, sometimes we'll go, just know that you don't ever infuse until you pull all the way back. But you will get that flashback once you hit the vessel. I don't know if you guys ever have been taught to flip. Like I said, this was for teaching of dialysis. Years ago, we were taught you put the needle in, you flip it. Well, it cores out the inside of the fistula. If you don't, no flipping. No flipping. And we did that because we didn't have needles that had the back eye on it. So if we didn't flip it and our blood flow was quite high, the needle will suck right up against the vessel and then it'll shut off the dialysis machine. And so if we flip it, we didn't have that problem. And then we use the H technique in taping. Do you guys do that as well? So we put a tape across the wings of the needle, and then we do a smaller piece of tape over each wing, so it looks like an H. That's our taping technique. And then we put like a small tegaderm window over the top of the needle, so we can see the needle site. It's not covered with tape.
So we've done Band-Aid tape.
We want to see the insertion site,
Yeah.
so we do the small
And
windows.
put a sterile gauze that they could look under. Seen that approach. But you're saying H and then.
So we tape down the wings, and then across the wing, and then we do each wing with a smaller piece so it looks like an H. And then we take the small tegaderm and put over the actual insertion site so that it's clear and we can see it if there's any bleeding or leaking or any of that. And we don't allow our patients to cover their arm up either, because should that come dislodged, needle fall out, so their arm has to be exposed at all times during their treatment. Post-treatment, pulling the needles, which, kind of sounds like duh, but wasn't but a month ago when we had someone come in and we had to actually go in and do some surgery on them. I say we like I did it, but because when they pulled the needle out, they were pushing down as they pulled the needle out, and the needle was scraping the back of the vessel, and it actually scraped right through and tore it. So you might get a little bit of blood back, but we suggest we use Sure Seals because it is so strong. You guys use the Sure Seals as well. So we put the Sure Seal over it, put a 4x4 or 2x2 something over it. Pull the needle out. When you get the needle out, that's when you put pressure down on there. You might have a little back with the blood, but better than damaging that vessel. And then Yep, go ahead.
So you don't use the safety cannon?
Yes,
for
we
that?
do, yes, yes, absolutely, and they're trialing new needles too, which are great. Do you have?
Different safety device?
Yes, they're nice, really, cause I don't know if you guys use the one with the curve.
Our 17s have one with a curve.
Yes, don't like them.
Our 16s have that stupid box.
Box.
I don't like that one. Yeah, it's a wing. It's like sliding a big plastic sheath down over it.
Oh, the new ones that they're using is you actually push two little buttons and the needle just retracts itself pretty much. They're nice, yeah. So,
Who makes those?
I'm not even sure. I can find out though,
That'd be perfect.
yeah.
The baby institution.
I would think so, yeah, I would think so. They've had so many needle sticks with that plastic doohickey thing. I don't use that, I don't like it. It's awkward to me.
And they come in 17, 16.
Yes, they do. So, then you wanna hold tight for 5 to 10 minutes, apply pressure. I don't know if you guys use clamps.
We had some, what happened to them?
Good, we don't like them.
Oh,
This whole seemed to work.
Well, and the reason why is because when you put a clamp on, it's a steady pressure. So then when you go to release it, you release it and, right. But when you're holding it, you don't have the same pressure. So it actually will clot off nicely. And have the patients hold it themselves if they can. Absolutely.
Like too much pressure is almost too much.
It is,
Too, if
and-
you press too hard, because I've noticed that same thing, that if you press it too
Yep.
hard, you let go and it just.
Right,
breaks your-
but most people can't sit for 10 minutes with the same pressure. It's a variant, so, yeah, hold them. We don't like, the clamps, and never use a clamp on a graft. Same reason for the tourniquet. And like we said, encourage the patient or family member to hold it. If you do use clamps, make sure when you have the two that you're feeling in between that you can feel the blood flow still, yeah, absolutely. And then what we do too is when we do use the clamps, we'll go back and loosen them after about 5 minutes. Loosen them a little bit. Yeah.
After we're supposed to take it out, is it recommended to just do like the shear seal, gauze, and leave the tape over it, or is it recommended just for the
No, never wrap anything around it. Yeah.
Patient request, patient insist.
Depending on if they're nursing home patients or if they are capable of taking that off shortly, but explain to them the rationale behind it, that should that get tight, it could clot off their access and they could lose it.
They're aware.
Okay, we have those few too in the dialysis unit, and you have to do it. Just wrap it loosely. Yeah, you have the few patients, and if they're, they're ambulatory and they live on their own and they know that they need to take that off, then what are you gonna do? But otherwise, no, we use the Sure Seal, and then after the 10 minutes after the access is clotted, then we just fold up a 4x4 and put some tape over it. We tell them that they can take that off after a few hours. And then we tell them to leave the Band-Aid on until the next day.
If you ever have problems, I think what we've run into is patients just getting huge clots all the way up and down their arm if we don't wrap it.
If you don't put a wrap around it,
Like acrylics, you mean, or
After we decannulate it and hold pressure, then we put another little tiny pressure dressing on it with a wrap on it. Some patients, if you don't do that, they end up having these giant infiltrating bruises up and down their arm.
So it's really not clotted.
Somebody's not holding pressure.
I've never run into that.
So yeah, but is it because he's on clotting factor?
Well, that one patient, I'm sure that happened to, he was on Plavix. and they've addressed that, where it doesn't take the Plavix the day before.
We do see that if someone's on Coumadin or Plavix, sometimes we will see they have a harder time clotting and run into hematomas, but they really shouldn't. I mean, I suppose there's a few cases.
They're unusual.
Yeah. I guess you just do your best and, work with it, but I have to say, never ever want to see Curlax or anything like that around, because it will, but you've got the few patients, and as long as they're aware and can take it off. We used to do that, but we got away from that because we would see patients coming back from a nursing home with that still wrapped and even tighter, because they've rolled around in their bed and it's even tighter on the arm, and so we just went away with it.
I mean, seriously, you could just put it on there as a placebo effect. You could just wrap it so incredibly loose that they think that,
Right, right,
it's more of a safety net for them, I
Yep.
think. Than
yeah,
it is-
probably, absolutely, yeah. And this is more for a dialysis patient. If you end up with a clotted access, we draw potassium, a CBC, and an INR. If they are, with your patients, if they are on like Coumadin, Plavix, or Coumadin at least, we'd want to get an INR checked, because they're probably going to have to go in and have a fistulogram done, and their INR has to be less than 2 to do that procedure. So should you have a patient that you come across and you're not feeling that thrill or listen, or you don't hear a bruit, so you're like, oh my goodness, they've got to go in and get this, I say rotor-rooted out, you want to make sure and check an INR if they are on Coumadin.
A lot of our life preserver patients probably would be on an anticoagulant of some sort because they're all heart. They're hypercholesterolemia patients, so most of them are all high.
We usually want them to hold it for 4 days for any procedure, but if you've got a clotted access, you don't have 4 days. You want to get in and get that declotted as soon as possible. So we just want to make sure their INR is low enough.
So that's something that we would take care of before sending them to you?
I would just, you've got them, get an INR drawn for us, because we're going to ask for it, so that would just be something.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you do have an infiltration, make sure that they apply ice. I don't know, do you guys have this brochure on infiltrations? Do you want me to send some up to you? Okay.
Please.
And then here it does say, place the new needle above the venous infiltration or below the arterial infiltration. Just depending on which way you're pulling the blood, you don't want to pull or push the blood back into the infiltration. So above or below. Did I just go backwards? I did. These are just some problem-solving skills, and we talked about them if unable to cannulate, ask for help, reassess the access. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's just a matter of having the patient move their arm, or you move their arm. Sometimes you really have to hyperextend it and get that elbow up.